Thank you for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be talking about Form 990EZ and the balance sheet. My name is Nikita. I'll be your host for today's webinar. I've been with Tax 990 for about 3 years now as the product manager, and I'm excited to help you guide you through the 990EZ balance sheet today. Before we get started, we'll go over just a couple of housekeeping things. This presentation will be recorded and available at tax990.com after the webinar. We'll also send out a copy of the presentation in an email. If you have questions during the presentation, please add them to the chat and we'll address those at the end of the webinar. Please note, we are not tax advisors or the IRS. We will not be giving specific tax advice, and we're not able to advise on your specific organization status. We're just simply going to be talking about the process of e-filing with Tax 990 and completing the balance sheet within the Tax 990 application. A balance sheet is a financial statement that provides a snapshot of an organization's financial health for the year. It shows what the organization owns for its assets and what it owes in liabilities, and the difference between the two known as equity or net assets. The 990EZ is the short version of the 990 form that provides less detailed financial information than the longer 990 series form. During today's webinar, we'll go through several agenda items. We'll learn what the balance sheet is, how to read the balance sheet, how to make it balance and resolve your errors, and we'll look at a demo of completing the 990EZ balance sheet inside the Tax 990 application. So what is the balance sheet? This is a financial report that summarizes organizations' assets and liabilities. It shows what's owned and what is owed. This sheet tells a story about the organization, how the organization operates financially during the year, and it shows growth, decrease, or sustainability. Assets are what an organization owns. Liabilities are what the organization owes. Net assets are what is left over after subtracting the total liabilities from the total assets. Accounts receivable is money an organization is owed but not yet paid for. Accounts payable is debt owed but not yet paid for. BOY is beginning of year and EOY is end of year. We'll see these terms quite a few times throughout the demo and throughout completing the balance sheet information. So let's look at how we're going to read the balance sheet. Again, assets are the value of what the organization owns, such as cash, which is money in the bank, accounts or on hand. Investments, such as stocks, bonds, or other investment funds. Equipment or property, things like office supplies, furniture, or computers, if applicable. And receivables, which is money that the organization is owed but hasn't received. Liabilities are what the organization owes to others. This can be accounts payable, loans, or mortgages. Net assets and fund balances. So after subtracting the liabilities from the assets, what's left over is the net assets or net worth of the organization. This is a financial reflection of the organization at the end of the year. Now, how does it all tie together? The assets, again, everything that the organization owns, must always be equal to the sum of the liabilities, which is everything the organization owes, and the net assets, which is the organization's remaining value. So the balance sheets are an essential part of the 990 form and the 990EZ. It'll provide a clear picture of the financial year for the organization. You can visit our knowledge base to learn more or contact our support team for assistance on the balance sheet. We have a significant amount of videos on our YouTube channel that help provide guidance and how-to information on completing the balance sheet and resolving specific errors. We also have a blog channel with a lot of step-by-step and how-to details. And of course, you can always contact our support team, which we will provide their support information here shortly. We're going to go ahead and move into the demo on tax990.com. So please give me just a moment to get my demo site up and running here. All right, so I went ahead and logged into my Tax 990 account. I have an in progress 990 EZ form here. I do have the form primarily completed for demo purposes, so I'm going to go ahead and click continue filing. Just one moment while my form loads here. I apologize for the delay. We are working on a test site, and sometimes we experience a delay in loading times on our test site. So I apologize. We will get back to it here in just a moment. Okay, there we go. So like I said, I have already completed majority of this form just for the sake of today's demo and for time. So we'll go ahead and look specifically at the balance sheet information and the process of filling that out. On page 1 here, we're going to start by inputting our revenue, expenses, and net assets. Now this is not assets and liabilities like we went through in the presentation. That comes into play on page 2. However, it has a significant role in balancing page 2 because we have to make several lines, and our line net assets at the bottom down here match several sections in part 2, which is our balance sheet. And these net assets at the bottom are calculated by our revenue and expenses. So I'm going to go ahead and enter a couple of values here to show the calculation process on this form. For revenue, you'll enter your end of year total revenue for the organization in the applicable categories. So I've entered that I had $6,000 in contributions, I had $2,000 in program service revenue, and that's going to calculate to $8,000 on my total revenue section. As you can see, the form is going to do several calculations for you to reduce some of the guesswork. So anything like this, for example, that combines several categories will auto-calculate. I'll enter expenses for this tax year. So this is the amount of money that the organization spent throughout the tax year. Now again, my expenses I've calculated as total expenses. If I separated that into 2 categories, it would calculate accordingly at the bottom here as $2,000 in total expenses based on my entries in line 10 and 11. Moving on to net assets, we can see here that line 18 was automatically calculated by subtracting my total revenue or my expenses from my revenue to give us a total of $6,000. So that's the difference between our revenue and our expenses. Now I'm going to actually jump over to page 2 here so I can help explain how line 19, which does need a value, but it correlates directly with page 2. So I'm going to go ahead and click on page 2. Oops, let's see. I apologize again. My test site is just finicky today, I think. Here we go. All right, so on page 2 is where we're going to have that balance sheet with assets and liabilities like we spoke about. So on this page, you're going to enter your total assets and liabilities for the tax year for beginning and end of year. I'm going to go ahead and indicate that I had $10,000 at the beginning of the year. At the end of the year, I had $16,000. So that's going to calculate my total assets. Now, the value here does have to match certain areas on page 1. So as I mentioned, this this number on line 27, column A for beginning of year is going to directly correlate with part 1. So we're going to go back to part 1 and scroll down, and it'll say here part 2, line 27. Again, this is part 2, line 27. Okay, if you are confused on that, we do have these help text available. If you hover over the little red exclamation point, it'll help provide an explanation of the error. So right now it's saying that part 1 line 19 has a value of $0, but it must be the same as the value in part 2 line 27A, that's $10,000. So the system is going to help you understand what values you need to put in what areas. And the same goes for this section as well. So now we're going to add our $10,000 here to indicate at the beginning of the year we had a total net assets fund balance of $10,000. As you can see, that updated our line 21 value, which is our total net asset and fund balances at the end of the year. So if I take that away, this value is going to be $6,000. If I add that back in, the value will be $16,000. So as I mentioned, this net assets on part 1 needs to match our balance sheet on part 2. The $10,000 matches our part 1 information, and the $16,000 matches our part 2 end of year information. If you run into errors along the way, of course, you'll have the exclamation points on the side to help provide guidance. But we also have our internal audit here on this little icon on the right that'll allow you to see what the error is, navigate to the error, and fix it. This one's actually been resolved already. It just didn't catch up with it. But once you've cleared all of those errors, you'll see this no error found icon and can proceed with transmitting your return. All right. So I hope that helped provide an explanation of completing the balance sheet on the Form 990EZ. It's pretty straightforward. It's significantly shorter than the 990 form. But if you do have any questions or you want more information, please visit us at tax990.com. Like I said, we have an extensive knowledge base and YouTube channel. We have a blog channel. Inside the application, there's an AI bot that can assist you. You can add questions to the AI assist feature within the application, and I can actually show you where that is real quick as well. This little robot guy up here on the corner will help provide guidance. He's an AI chatbot. So if you have questions throughout the filing process, go ahead and use that AI chatbot. He's pretty intuitive and can help you with your process. Check out our knowledge base, or of course you can contact our support team. We're available Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5:30 Eastern Standard Time, and we can be reached via phone, email, or chat support. We are all live agents in the office and ready to help you with your form. As the November 15th deadline approaches, we are experiencing a higher support volume, so please go ahead and get started sooner rather than later so we can provide you the best assistance and make sure you are prepared to meet that November 15th deadline. We'll take just a couple minutes. If you guys have questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat now, and we can take a few minutes to answer questions before we finish up for the day. Carrie is wondering if the first payroll due after the start of the new fiscal year count as liabilities. If I'm understanding your question correctly, I would indicate yes, since it's being paid in that tax year, it would count for that tax year, regardless of whether it's for a tax, like a payroll for the previous year. But please do confirm with your tax advisor or the IRS for confirmation on that. I'll also just let you know that we do have a sister product, Tax Bandits, that assists in filing 1099s and W-2s for your employees and contract workers. So please check out taxbandits.com for assistance with filing those payroll forms in January. We've got a couple other questions about our sister product tax bandits for filing 1099s and W-2s. I'm going to go ahead and share the link for their website with everybody here. Again, tax bandits can assist with 1099s, W-2s, 941s, and other tax forms. We also file the BOIR, the W-9, and have an EFTPS payment option. So definitely check out tax bandits for those e-filing needs. They also have a full support team available, so you can give them a call and they would be happy to help get you set up with an account and provide that guidance. All right, the questions have really slowed down, so we're going to go ahead and finish up for the day. Thank you again for joining us. If you have questions, please reach out and keep an eye out. We've got a couple other webinars coming up leading up to the November 15th deadline. The next one is next week, where we will discuss the process in full and some specific features when filing with Tax 990. So definitely check that one out. You can see all of our webinars at tax990.com/webinars. And you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks.